Now that we have a basic understanding of how a React component renders its content, we're going to talk a little bit more about the life cycle of an application, and we will get more into each one of these methods later on. Right now I'm just going to show you a few of them. So the first one is constructor, which can take in a props argument, and it can instantiate the parent class by running super with the props. Now, this is going to only be run when the application component is instantiated, not every time it re-renders, and we'll talk more about re-rendering right now. So, the life cycle of a component is basically a string of functions that get called to determine, based on variable changes maybe, whether something needs to be updated and re-rendered. So there's the component will mount, and this gets passed two arguments, the props that it will mount with, and state. There's the component did mount, which also gets props state, and these are the props in the state that it mounts with. So if I console log mounted with props and state and then save it, we can go back to our browser and look in the console, and it says mounted with undefined undefined. Also, we can see we have a useless constructor as of right now because it doesn't actually do anything. We'll get more into that after. And then there's a few methods that get called during a state change, which is component will receive props. It takes in the props. And this actually gets called before it mounts because it will receive properties when it mounts. Well, hopefully. And every time it re-renders as well, or a property changes, it receives the properties all over again. And then there's two more. Component will update gets props and state, and these are the properties and state that it will update to. So if the properties update, and we'll get more into the props and state here in the next video, but for right now, basically, this is going to be a JavaScript object. So will this, or undefined, actually. And this will update. So you could test. So this props is the current props. So you could compare, let's say you had a property called name. So you could say, if this props name doesn't equal props name, and then you could do something. And then component did update, and this is the safer way to handle component updates, because I think they're actually taking out the will method. So component will update and component will mount, because people are using them improperly. So component did update gets triggered when a re-render happens as well, and this is the current, or these are the old properties. So in this instance, component will update. You can still access this props for the current properties, and the props variable that's getting passed in here is the new properties that are getting passed to it, and the reverse is true with component did update. These are the old properties, and you can access the current properties by this props. And then whatever, so name. So I'm going to save this. This does nothing right now. It just it just logs mounted with and then undefined, undefined. And that's okay. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about updates and the state itself.